Welcome back, and welcome to another episode of the Random Thoughts Show.
Hi guys.
This one's a little less random. This is a direct follow-on from the last episode. I think it was 117 or something like that.
Yep.
We're going to talk about footy, but now we're going to talk about AFL football in terms of performance.
Yeah, the important stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, the other stuff's important, but this is the exciting and important.
Yeah.
So when I think about footy, I think that the single most important qualities, it's that speed and agility factor. Because if you don't have that, it doesn't matter I don't care how fit you are, if you are not able to get away from people or get to people.
Yeah, if you're going to close down space or get out of space.
Well, you can't be in the opportunity to tackle, to be fit. Yeah, you're just going to not be able to play the game.
There's no point having a 65 VO2 max or being able to run the world's best yo-yo if your acceleration, your change of direction, your reactivity, your explosiveness off the line, if you just can't separate that distance on your opponent, then you're not on my team.
So your 2K time trial can be amazing. You can be doing that in your...
And that certainly helps.
Yeah.
Certainly, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, but I think the lead quality is speed and agility.
And the AFL will measure 20-metre speed. So the 20-metre sprint is usually the gold standard. But I actually think in a lot of ways the 5 and 10-metre sprints are really what set up a good 20-metre sprint.
Yeah, that tremendous early acceleration. So should we start off with acceleration stuff and then flow into agility?
Yep. Nice. And I think we should touch on, let's give an overview while we're at it. I think we should then touch on strength, because strength is really the foundation of that acceleration and agility. And then I suppose we can tie it out with conditioning and anything else that comes up along the way.
Sounds good. Okay.
Cool. Let's kick us off with acceleration.
So acceleration is a very specific skill. It's the ability to have, it's the ability to get in the right position early. I think that dictates whether you can accelerate well. Like get that power to the ground well. There's plenty of people with really good power, but they're not getting it to the ground well. They don't have that skill.
And there's also plenty of people with good top speed running, but take forever to wind up.
Yeah.
So their 20-metre time is under 3 seconds.
Yeah.
But their 10 is over 2 seconds. You should be running your 0 to 5 in under a second, your 0 to 10 in under 2, and then your 20 in under 3. In that order, though, that should be your priority.
That should be the priority. I always think of it like a Porsche 911 and a Barina. You can get a Barina up to 200k an hour. That's what the speedo says. If the speedo says it can do that pace, it means it can do that speed. But it's the speed at which the Porsche can get from 0 to 100 that actually is what separates
that face melting acceleration off the line. That's something that puts you back in your seat. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's exactly the same in sport. Like that ability to go from I'm not moving, I'm in a defensive reactive stance to all of a sudden I'm at approaching maximum velocity as quick as possible.
Yeah. And so I really think your transition, your transition from that athletic preparation stance into a good sprinting position. So we call them transitions.
We've got footage of that finally too. Not that we can put it out now. But
we do
with the internship. We had the internship intensive over the weekend.
Yep.
And we were working on a little bit of that with the interns.
I think we even have an Instagram post talking about transitions
as
well. Yeah. Going that idea of going from that athletic stance into a sprinting stance as quickly as possible. And so being able to be reactive, plyometric, and popping into shape really fast.
And a big part of that is just about getting organized early. Just about being able to switch quickly into an opposite stance.
Yeah, put your arms in the right place, put your legs in the right place, chest over knee.
And the thing I particularly like about that is that's a skill everyone can practice. That isn't tiring. There's no super compensation curve. Like if you're doing high effort sprinting, you can only do a small amount of that stuff. You can't put a lot of that work in because it comes at a cost. There's almost no cost to practicing your transitions and getting organized more rapidly.
Practicing making good shapes. Yeah.
So let's take it right from there. So assuming you've attended to your mobility, flexibility, you've warmed everything up, you've done warm 2.0, you're good to go. And now it's just, okay, how am I going to technically get fast early, get early acceleration? I think it's just practicing the transitions.
Yep.
And then it's that skill of taking smaller steps earlier.
Yes. So often footballers want to reach and they want to open up their stride prematurely.
Yeah.
As opposed to trying to get that, what they call a positive shin angle, where you're pushing your body out on an angle and pushing the ground down and away from you. Yeah. So getting the foot under the center of mass with, really with the chest pushing low, hips low, and really driving through the quads and the glutes.
And there's actually a fair bit of ground contact time on those first few steps. So you're not bouncing off the ground. You're actually kind of really digging into the ground and pushing off it's quite a muscular thing. The first few steps when you're going from 0 to max, you're actually pushing. Yeah.
Exactly. Those first 3 steps are very force dependent. So top speed is very much about reactivity and alignment and being springy. Those first 3, maybe 4 or 5 steps, that's all about grunt work into the ground.
Yeah, just get that force into the ground.
Exactly.
And then once you open up, then it all changes, and it's much more about that elasticity and that reaction, that springiness.
It goes from a piston-like action to a cyclical or cyclical action, where your legs are going from sort of down and up like a piston run. And we'll link to some videos of some stuff like this.
We can do the one with your great the great music I like. That my favorite one.
Yeah, the three drills for great acceleration. That's a really good video.
Yeah.
There's got 3 really simple drills that, again, aren't very neurally taxing. Not much of a super compensation a cost, but have enormous bang for buck from a motor learning point of view and learning how to put that force that you might have in your body into the right direction.
Yeah. So I think practicing the transition, getting going, putting that force into the ground
in the right direction.
And it's not, there's that phase that I think eludes a lot of people is it's not binary. It's not either you're pushing into the ground, then suddenly you're floating beautifully in top speed mechanics. There is that phase in between the two where you want to be starting to get that springiness going, but still with a piston shape.
That late acceleration, they'll call it in technical track terms.
Yeah.
So late acceleration where you go from driving head down, really aggressively pushing the ground, into less and less of that and more into that upright top speed mechanics type situation.
And I think so much of team sport in general and foot in particular, so much of the linear component of that, the late acceleration is just kind of your money-making capacity.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And so that's practicing. That's just getting that elasticity. That's doing drills like the piston runs. I think the piston run transitioning into running is really good.
We've got a whole YouTube playlist of videos that talk about acceleration and speed development. So we'll link to that playlist and just
so work on all that technical stuff.
That's not to discredit the importance of strength and power, which we'll talk about in a second, but those also will allow you, once you've made good shapes, getting stronger will then allow you to create more force, obviously, but we'll talk about that separately in a second.
But just on a technical level, just getting that ability to do that. And then you do, I think also with the linear stuff, if you do cultivate that really nice, once you have opened up the stride a little more and you're a little more towards top speed mechanics, cultivating that effortless running where it's sub-maximal. You're actually not trying that hard, but you're doing it with such a nice pattern that it's easier. So you're able to just get places really efficiently. So it's not necessarily that I've got to chase that person down. It's just moving around with less effort per step.
Yeah.
And then you've got more effort. When you got more in the tank for when you need it, yeah.
That makes you more efficient for later in the game. So by becoming more effective as a runner, you can become more efficient. So you'll need less fitness, or you can make more of the fitness you have. Is probably a better way of phrasing that.
Yeah, I saw ages ago. It was a sprint coach. It was a woman. I don't recall the name, but she was working with a team of soccer players, and she was running around the ground with them, and just not at all puffed, and they were working, and she's like, she was kind of trash talking them. It was pretty cool. She's like, you guys are fitter than I am, don't you? And they're like, what? It's like, yeah, you're like, I'm just able to move like this because I'm doing this easier because I'm using elasticity.
Yeah.
So if you can do that, that's a bit of a superpower, I reckon, as well.
And so a lot of that comes down to your heel strike.
Yeah, not having that heel strike. Yeah,
learning to strike the ground both during acceleration and top speed running, and in your jogging and your coasting and your easy running, striking the ground with your midfoot under your body. So
just that effortless running.
So you can take advantage of your calf. Yeah,
I feel like Chris Judd was particularly smooth at that. Like he had that beautiful stride.
He was really nice to watch.
Yeah.
Gary Ablett too, when he played a lot more midfield, he was beautiful to watch like that too. Just floated over the ground.
Yeah, and so if you take care of that, there's those benefits, and there's also I think there's a benefit too of it makes you look better, and that sounds a bit shallow and vacuous, but what I mean is your opponent's motivation often hinges over whether they think they're getting to you or they're beating you or you don't have much in the tank. The best thing you can have is this poker face and this look in your posture and the way you're carrying yourself that you could just do this all day and that you have 1,000 liters in the tank.
You got 1,000 more sprints like that ready to go.
That because that's demoralizing for them. Whereas if they see you kind of heaving and making effort, they're like, if I just try a little harder,
I can break him.
Yeah. Whereas
I'll
if they
take
go, oh, I'm never going to break this guy, that's quite demotivating for them.
Yeah.
So I think there's that as well. And also, coaches are less likely to drag you.
Yeah, you look better to the coaches. If it's a selection-based thing, if you look like you're always easy, it's like that guy's just keeps going and going. Oh, that
Great
girl
athlete.
just keeps going and going and going. It's like...
Yep. So there's a lot to be said for it, because it is sometimes that's almost like your athletic calling card.
Yeah.
You know, your signature. How well do you move?
They run and accelerate beautifully.
I mean, you've got to be able to do all the other stuff. There's no point just running around like this beautiful track athlete and just
And getting 3 touches all game.
Can't catch, can't kick, can't mark. But yeah, so that's the linear component. So you want to be really good at that. So it's effortless. It has a lower impact on your body, and you can get to people and get away from people.
Because you don't. So often we see situations where an athlete sprints down the wing and takes 4 bounces, but that play, that epic play, was set up with a great clearance.
Yeah,
someone burst the pack, created a meter of separation, took a sidestep on their opponent, and then opened up all that space for that athlete to run in. So you see, Lewis Jetta versus Cyril Rioli from a few years back in the AFL Grand Final, bouncing down the ring. It's like he only got to there because he got that first step on Cyril. Had he not got that first step, he wouldn't have got to that situation. So it comes from that acceleration, that ability to create power. And it also comes from our next topic, from your agility, from your ability to create change of direction and separation.
Yeah. Let's talk agility. I love agility.
Me too.
I love, you see those moves where someone just does a really subtle little change of direction. All of a sudden, they've created this tremendous amount of space. And the really agile footy players, they can just buy themselves so much time to make better decisions. And so I think they have a different worldview. Like, if you're less agile, it's like, oh my God, everyone's closing in on me. I've got to do quick. I've got to make a decision.
That was me.
Was it?
That was me. I was quite strong and quite powerful and could mark a ball. Couldn't kick. Could mark, had good hands. But just couldn't create any space for myself because I wasn't very good laterally. I was fit. I was the opposite of what we just talked about. I was fit, but not very fast and explosive. So I couldn't create any separation. And so I was always in a panic. Always had half a step less than everyone else on the field.
Yeah.
Whereas,
despite being a quick, like, you've got a big brain, quick thinker. So it's interesting, isn't it? Like that you had fitness, you had strength, you had structural robustness, you had a high IQ,
but panicked under pressure because of that lack of ability to create separation. And
like you're missing the most important ingredient.
Yeah.
So interesting. And some people will say, oh, that's just, you either have it or you don't. And I think that's really defeatist. I think definitely some people have more of it than others. So some people have talent in that area.
And people also have that innate sense for their opponent in football sense. Like some people can just know how to create that space. Like Scott Pendlebury is a great example. With a basketball and football background as a kid, played a bit of both, and then he brought that combination of skills to AFL, and he can just work in a phone box. I'm biased because I'm a Collingwood supporter, but he can just work in a phone box and no one can touch him. Yeah, it looks like he just has so much more time than everyone else. It's just incredible. And that Fife is similar as well. Just can't get to them.
So back to the genetic lottery. Some people are just great at that, some aren't. But everyone's on a continuum, and you can push people along the continuum. So you can make everyone a little bit better. I don't think there's anyone I've ever seen I've gone, oh, you are the only people. Some people you look at it, you go, you probably can't get any better. Are the people who are absolutely amazing, who actually don't need to work on it. Those guys have kind of maxed. They've kind of clocked agility. Yeah, like some of those guys less so. But everyone, all the other mortals. Yeah, you can work on it a little bit.
Because not everyone can be elite, but everyone can be better than they currently are. You can always get just a little bit better.
And I think there's two components to it. There is the physiological, and then there's just the neurological reactivity,
cognitive
side of things.
If we define agility, that's exactly how to break it down. So a rapid whole body change of direction in response to a stimulus. So the whole body change of direction is our specialty, and then the response to stimulus is dependent on your situation, your context, and your experience in playing the game.
Yeah, and it's something that people should focus on, because if you can make better decisions quicker, if you're better at watching what the torso is doing and not watching whatever everything else is doing and just reacting to cues.
That's a really important point, because they've done multiple studies across multiple sports and looked at better agility, more agile athletes compared to less agile athletes. And the more agile athletes, they watch different things. They watch their opponent, they watch the ball for different amounts of time, they watch the hips, the feet, they focus on different cues at different points, and that's what actually gives them their separation.
Some great studies in that space. Dr. Warren Young?
Yeah, I think so. Yep.
Yeah. studying where people's eyeballs are going, like actually watching where the eyes are.
Eye focus
tracking.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It's so interesting. So our amateurs tip on that one is just knowing that that's a thing and paying more attention to that is going to be helpful.
And paying attention when you make mistakes on that.
Yeah.
So when you misjudge an opponent, go, what did I actually, because so often that happens, we go straight to the next contest and we don't think about it. But actually thinking and going, well, what was it that I did wrong? What did I look at wrong? What did I focus on differently? What can I change?
So that's that side of it. The physiological is simply, I think, it's really simple, but it's get strong. Because if you don't get strong, you're not going to have that ability to absorb your entire body weight and then push back in the opposite direction off one leg. And the weird thing is that getting strong on two legs actually really helps you on one leg. You wouldn't think, it seems a little counterintuitive that having a really good core lift or back squat is going to help. But having a really good back squat that's just that's not relative strength, it's absolute strength, that's not particularly helpful. So if you are a 80 kilo person and you're doing 120 kilos or something, it's like, oh, well, that sounds like quite good. But
1.5, it's okay.
That's okay. But you really want to be having the best possible ratio you can have.
Yeah, it's all relative strength is king. And I'll link to our blog article from our first combine when we looked at all the stats. All the athletes who ran good 5-10 5 times were crazy strong.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No one was running under 4.7 for the guys or under 4.9 for the girls.
So
without being like 1.5, 1.6, 1.7 times body weight.
To be
strong.
clear, that fundamental character of acceleration, its underpinning is your strength. Just no one did well unless they were strong.
And that's pure grunt strength relative to your body weight. That's the real key there.
Relative to body weight, yeah. And it's the same with agility. Like agility was even a higher correlation.
Well, yeah, that's the exact stats I said there. So the article has all the numbers, which are pretty cool and pretty impressive. But all our athletes who ran well, male and female, did it by being strong. There's no one squatting under 1 times body weight with these crazy outlier numbers.
Yeah.
They all got there by being strong.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. The bad news is it takes a while.
Yeah, you can't just go into the gym tomorrow and try and lift double body weight or 1.75 times body weight. You got to get there over time.
So be patient with it. I think one element where you can improve it though is the Rom Squat. So the just a unloaded squat where you're chasing just a little bit more range of motion, just getting comfortable being down in a kind of reactive stance, just loading those adductors, loading the hips. That's something people can do on their own as well. It doesn't have to be in a gym to capitalize on that.
Yeah, and again, it's not world breaking or amazingly impressive when you put it on Instagram. But
it's the worst Instagram thing ever.
But it works. Do you want to tell your story about the athlete with the broken wrist who couldn't back squat, and so they Rom squatted their way to amazing agility?
So we had a basketballer who suffered a dislocated shoulder, and so we couldn't put a bar on his back, obviously, because dislocated shoulder, and we were a bit restricted over what we could do lower body wise, and so we did a lot of work. We just put a lot of reps in on the Rom squat just to kind of keep him ticking over and just make sure he maintains some strength. I didn't think much of it at the time. I was like, we're doing as much as we can. So, we did some single leg work. We did a bit of that.
And if I remember correctly, you did high rep work.
High rep.
You didn't actually do traditional strength, what they would call traditional strength rep ranges. You go sort of more high volume type work.
I just wanted to keep him because he couldn't run either. And I just wanted to maintain some condition in the legs, I suppose, and the adductors. Anyway, returned to play. And after a long, it was probably 6-7 months off, because you got to take your time with the shoulder. Like if you've dislocated a shoulder, you've loosened up the joint capsule, you've really got to make sure everything is good to go. And he came back and he came and said, Durham, why am I so much quicker laterally than I was before I got injured?
Even though on a back squat and a core lift terms, he was weaker. And from a running conditioning point of view, he was way behind.
And I think it was just he had gotten very good at operating in a deep stance. Like he was able to express speed and power in a deeper stance because he had better mobility and just access to more strength down in that position.
So it was just way more comfortable in that wide stance. So therefore, when it came to pushing out of that wide stance, it was just like, this is easy, I got this.
And I'm not even sure I think it was just depth. Like I just think he was just comfortable just getting down to a good position easily. Yeah. And so those angles, he was just hitting better angles. Where he was, because the taller you are, if you're really upright, then you're hitting these oblique angles into the ground, and you just can't get much bang for your buck.
Not as much horizontal translation.
Yeah. So it was pretty cool.
So the Rom Squat is nice if you don't have access to
Yeah.
barbells and trap bars, but to really, you want to do a little bit of that, but then also combine it with lifting heavy things.
Yeah. So
in safe ranges of motion.
Make sure you're doing that. Get a little bit of single leg work in as well. Some control work, single leg squats.
Walking lunges are great for that too, because they promote range in a safe way.
And then you've got the actual agility stuff itself. I think do a pinch of ladder work. Only a pinch, because that's ladders.
And they're not.
You're adorable ladders.
They're not speed ladders. They're not agility ladders. They're foot quickness ladders. They're reactivity ladders. That's what they are.
And a pinch of it's good just to fire your system up. But your bread and butter should be actually load and explode, like getting your body having to load one side and explode. So a 1-2 stick drill is really good for that. And just basic cutting stuff, just getting that feeling of bouncing out of a cut. You know, like that feeling of not just going in and then really pushing off, but running, hit a cut, and then really getting that explosive reaction out of a cut with your foot straight ahead, not turned out.
Yeah, popping out of those corners is really important. So like we do the 5-10-5 test in here.
Yeah,
doing the 5-10-5 test as an agility conditioning drill.
Yeah,
as a way of improving your agility. Practice the test.
Yeah.
It's a great way of doing it.
And just getting a feel for it. And there's lots of others. There's a lot of other stuff. We don't have time to go into it all. But I think just attend to those foundations. Like get the body strong and mobile, and then do stuff that involves actual stretch shortening cycle change of direction.
Yep. Absorb your own body weight. Get out of the corners quick.
Yeah.
Learn how to re-accelerate on angles, and then you're good to go.
So assuming you've taken care of that, then you need to take care of jumping, because there is marking. We've done so much stuff on jumping. It's not funny.
We've got a whole, I think it's like a 10 or 12 part series. It just keeps growing every time we write a new article, make a new podcast. We've got a 10-part series on all the components of jumping on our website. And probably the best one is probably the science of vertical leap. That article and video we did a little while ago.
And again, with the jumping, it comes back to being strong. The correlation there was very high of those that were strong jumped higher. So attend to that.
And again, relative strength, not just absolute.
Yeah. And mobility, like do your stretching, keep everything moving nicely.
Keep your glutes active.
And practice the type of jumping that you're going to need in the sport. So if you're going to need 1 foot jumping, practice 1 foot jumping more.
Seems so obvious when you say it like that, but if you're a footballer, it's going to be probably more one foot jumping on a mark, on a lead in a ruck contest. So you're going to need to practice that ability to take a run up and then turn that into a vertical translation.
And land it nicely.
Yeah.
Don't try and stick that landing by stopping dead after you've landed, like roll through. I think that's one of the biggest differences is when you're landing is that ability to kind of hit the ground and just take a few steps to wash that off, which some people just do automatically, as they should, and others not as much.
Yeah, try and stop hard and that jars on your knees and all kinds of awkward positions.
So those, your big things, your linear, lateral, and vertical power and the underpinnings in strength. But then there's also just like grunty wrestling, tackling a person strength, which is...
That was something not only myself, but we as footballers when I was a kid, we never did much in the way of tackling or wrestling training.
Yeah, right.
I think it was an area that was really lacking, was like actually practicing being under fatigue in a wrestling type situation and having to fight your way out of position or wrestle for the ball.
Yeah, it's a big part of the game. Yeah. My advice is lean on the sports coaches for that, because it's not our area. But what you want to be nice. Again, circles back. You want to be nice and strong so that you can express your strength in that wrestling. So if you have a weak rotator cuff, if you're weak at pulling rather than pushing, if you're not structurally that sound with your upper body strength or your low body strength,
grip strength is also important.
There yeah. So again, circles back to proper lifting.
And core training too.
Yeah.
A lot of that, when you're in those awkward positions, having a strong core to perform the platform for all that wrestling and all that gripping and tussling and stuff like that is going to be really valuable too.
And when people think core, I think they think too much exclusively of the abs and they're not thinking enough about the hips. Yeah. You watch great footy players navigate situations where they appear to be really, really in trouble. And often they'll display some nice agility and they'll get out of a couple of situations. And then finally someone will actually get hold of them. But their hip strength will be so good, they're like, that's not a tackle.
Dusty Martin.
Yeah.
Everyone gets so excited about Dusty Martin's fend off.
They love his fend off.
That is not his upper body. That is all his hips and core. That is
Yeah.
anti-rotation through the glutes, the obliques, and the lower back.
It's probably like, we've got to be careful not to be in absolutes. There's an upper body component to it.
Oh, for sure. You can't have noodle arms and do that.
But if you had to bias, okay, where am I going to bias my strength? You want to bias it much more towards the hips.
Mm.
Like once you've got enough arm strength, enough's enough. It's almost like you can never have enough hip strength for that stuff.
No, not for footy.
Yeah.
For sure.
So then we come, I think, so you've got the explosiveness, linear, lateral, vertical.
And
you've got
so that's
strength.
your power and movement skill. Then the strength that is the foundation of that power.
And we'll just assume that balance and all that stuff's back in the other bits.
Yeah, go back to part one for the balance and the fluffy things, which are important, but they are sometimes a bit fluffy.
And I think now we're up to football fitness.
Conditioning. Yeah. Repeat sprint ability.
And so the fitness stuff, the fitness piece, I think over the years it's gotten better and better. It seemed to me for a long, long time that people would just go, you run 10K in a game, therefore you should run 10K slowly to prepare for it. But no, you're actually running bursts of 20 to 30 meters on average.
I don't even know the stats on what an average sprint is these days in AFL.
But it's short.
Yeah, it's under 50 meters for sure. It's under 40.
You've got to be preparing for shorts. So repeat effort sprint stuff. That works brilliantly. Yep. Just getting the ability to consistently put in hard efforts and be able to recover rapidly because you have anaerobic rather than aerobic fitness.
And the nice thing about that type of training is it doesn't rob you of your speed. Because going for long, slow 10K runs actually will, via enzymes and hormones and motor units and all those kind of fancy things, will actually have a negative effect on your speed ability.
Well, can we talk about fiber profiling and hybrid fibers? Because I think that's probably relevant. It's a little nerdy, but I think it's worth thinking about.
Yeah, especially footy.
So you've got fast twitch fibers, which are the ones that we love.
Type 2 or type 2A more specifically.
You have slow twitch.
Type 1.
And then you have these really cool hybrid fibers.
Type 2C, Type 2X, Type 2AB, Type 2BB, all these different, and there's hundreds, and they keep finding more. And they're all subtly different in the way they lay down their proteins and stuff like that.
But the common denominator is that these are the ones that will transform based on how you train. So if you do a lot of long, slow distance work, they will transform to being very efficient in terms of oxygen.
Yep, so they'll increase their mitochondrial density, they'll become more oxygen rich, better at storing and utilizing fats, all those kind of things that would help you in a marathon.
Yeah, but you'll end up then with less ability to actually run fast.
Yeah, and so that will also rob you of your type 2A ability, your explosive speed and explosive strength and power.
And it's not to say you go for one long run and all of a sudden
you
can't. Oh my God, I was dunking yesterday, now I can't. But it is an important thing to consider because if you are wanting maximum performance, you want to be much more biased towards fast twitch and just have good recovery.
Yeah, you want to be filling all your performance buckets, but never taking water out of another bucket to pay a different bucket.
Yeah,
you want to get it from somewhere else completely.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you were to go follow it to its logical conclusion, you'd be really fit, but again, unable to get to the ball, and so it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter how fit I am. If I can't run fast.
We talked about with that work rate episode when we talked about Collingwood being the number one working team in the league and West Coast not being, and West Coast proved that they didn't need to be that work because they kept possession of the ball, they were smarter, and they worked when they needed to, not just for the sake of it.
Yeah, I think we talked about like tennis players, or doing like the good tennis players, they're just running you around the the court. Yeah. So
it's a be smarter, not be fitter situation.
So repeat effort sprints tick the box of fiber profiling, of actually having the fiber profile you want. And they're also working you anaerobically. They're working you metabolically. Jacob, can you talk about that? I think the distinction between working your heart and lungs as pumps, which is important, but also developing the appropriate enzymes so you've got that metabolic fitness rather than just pumping fitness.
That aerobic fitness. Yeah. So anaerobic fitness is your ability... we'll go back a step. Aerobic fitness is your ability for your heart and lungs to pump blood and oxygen around the body.
So we are working aerobically right now.
Right now, yeah. Heart rate's probably around 80, 90. It's a little warm in here.
My heart rate's like low 60s. I've got this.
I trained this morning, so maybe it's a little elevated. But our heart rate's low enough that our body can maintain all our energy with oxygen comfortably via the heart and lungs. If we were to be doing this on the skill mill and trying to talk while in the skill mill, our lactic acid increases, our hydrogen ions increase, all these factors and things in our blood increase. And that's where your anaerobic fitness comes in. Your ability, anaerobic fitness is effectively your ability to tolerate those metabolites, those
waste products.
Thank you, within your body and deal with those while also executing a large amount of effort and energy. And so anaerobic fitness is not just your heart and lungs doing the job, it's the enzymes inside your body producing energy really quickly and dealing with those waste products also quickly.
Your phosphofructokinase.
And friends, those guys, yeah.
It's the only one I know. I think it makes you sound like you're really on top of it.
Exactly.
And the really cool thing is that in the pursuit of better metabolic fitness, you actually get aerobically better as well. It's a double whammy.
Yeah, it goes. So fitness tends to flow from strength, power, repeat sprints, anaerobic qualities into aerobic fitness.
Yeah.
But aerobic fitness doesn't flow back the other way.
Yeah.
Becoming better at marathons doesn't make you better at 100 meters or 200 meters.
Whereas becoming better at 200 meters will actually, if you do it the right way, make you better at marathons.
Yeah. So for your football fitness, you want to be doing work in the sort of 10, 20, 30, 40 meter work to be training your speed qualities and your fitness qualities at the same time. But then also probably some work in the 200 to 400 type range to develop that ability. Because football, the work-rest ratios are so random, you don't know when you're going to be in 3 contested situations in a row. And so you need to have the anaerobic ability to tolerate those as well.
And I think also what you gain out of that is you're ticking, to circle back to what we were talking about in the last episode in terms of injury prevention. If you're pursuing the repeat effort stuff, what you're gaining is you're getting a good base of high speed running. You're getting your muscles adapted to high speed running, so you're less likely to tear them. Yeah,
it's more than just the fitness. You're also getting the tissue adaptation to that specific action of really fast running.
And if you don't have tissue adaptation, like if I were to suddenly start trying to run really fast because I haven't put that work under my belt, I'd tear my hammy, like guaranteed, because I don't have the adaptation for that high speed running. You've got to have that, and so getting that as a guaranteed minimum through some of your training is really, really valuable.
It's just better, smarter, more efficient.
There's so many facets to which it's better, but it still gets passed over for sand running,
and hill sprints.
Like, why don't you just run fast in a way that's pretty similar to how you would run fast in a game, but just in a more controlled way, working within yourself just a little bit, so that you're not, So if you think you could handle doing 20 20s, do 8.
8, and then the next week do 9 or 10, and then just build up slowly from there.
Really incremental. Yeah.
It's also, as an aside, the AFL Combine recently has changed from a 3K time trial and the beat test. They've moved things down to a 2K time trial, which is a lot more anaerobic because it's now a 7-minute test, not a 12-minute test. And they've also moved the beat test to a yo-yo test, which is much more of an anaerobic test as opposed to an aerobic test. So they know that's how the game is played. They've changed the test to match that. So you should change your training to match what the AFL and AFLW are doing.
And there'll be a real lag with it. I mean, we're doing some testing work this week with footy players, and we'll be doing yo-yo because I think that's where it's at for those guys.
Much better than the beep test because you're mimicking that sprint, rest, sprint, rest, and then how hard can you push that?
Because in particular, so all the tests, all those sorts of tests, they're often just tests of how much you want it. Like we saw
mental toughness.
We saw a couple of our siblings, like 2 siblings going at each other, and that's just, I will not be beaten by my brother, and I'll die before I let that happen.
Your body gives up much faster than your head, they say.
Yeah. But I think, sorry, I've lost my train of thought because I think your head gets up much faster than your body is what you meant to say. You said the other way around.
Oh, yeah. True. My bad.
That confused me. Doing that stuff though builds. Like you build the mental tolerance to it as well. Like running at a high effort, it's just like, this feels normal, and therefore the game doesn't feel faster as well.
Be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah. So you've attended to all those things. I think you should do the other component fitness wise is just doing some deloaded work rather. So doing some intense bike work where you can attack the enzymes, but off legs.
Yeah, so you're not accumulating so many ground reaction forces that you open yourself up to shin splints or knee.
Because you want to get just the right dose, not too much, not too little. And then the bike, I mean, I think 8 and 12, 30 on, 30 off, even your 15, 45.
15, 45, 20, 40, anything in that territory.
Yeah. So we're talking here about, like if I say 8 and 12, it's work really hard for 8 seconds, rest for 12 seconds.
Yeah. And so 20, 40 would be 20 work, 40 rest.
So if you do all those things and you attend to all of your preparation, recovery stuff, and you're nutritionally on point, you're going to go really well, and your team's going to go really well. But you've got to focus on the big rocks. Are you strong and mobile? Do you have good movement skill? And are you actually putting in work at the velocities that the sport requires?
This episode was very much in order, wasn't it? Speed, agility, strength, vertical leap, fitness last.
Not random thoughts.
Not random.
Structured thoughts.
Structured and organized and sequential thoughts.
Yeah, let's change the name. So a million different things in the show notes.
I'll link to our speed playlist, our vertical leap playlist. I think we've got some stuff on agility. Yep. I'll link to the correlation stuff from our combine, which is interesting if you like the number side of things. And then that article that is just a superstar article that you wrote ages ago, which was the sport-specific fitness one.
Yeah, sounds great. All right, good stuff.
Yeah, nice.
We'll see you guys next time.